Is this an outlier along with Mark Davis now that we've had two guys bounced in the middle of the season? Frank Reich is now the first coach in the Super Bowl era to get bounced in back-to-back seasons by two different teams. Are we seeing a new impetuousness of NFL owners right now, Mike? What do you think?
Well, I think we are, and I think we aren't, because this isn't a new trend. And Jim Irsay was willing to fire Frank Reich last year during the season, I think because Irsay was hell-bent on giving Jeff Saturday a test drive, and we saw how that went after the first game. That was a win over the Raiders. Every game after that was a loss. But you've got so much money. Number one, there's no salary cap for coaches. So the coaching pay over the last 50 years hasn't risen at the same rate player pay has. You can easily justify in your budget buying out a coach if you want to move on. And I think there's so much pressure and reaction and social media. There's less patience across the board in the NFL. There's less patience with the players. There's less patience with the coaches. And when somebody comes in right away, look at what DeMeco Ryans did this year and what he's doing in Houston. That gets guys fired because owners think all I have to do is make the right hire. If I make the right hire, the right guy at the right time, we're set. And if we get the right quarterback at the right time, we're set. And everybody wants to have that dynasty. Everyone wants to stand out among the other billionaires as the next Robert Kraft figure, the one who can say, look at all these rings we've amassed. So I do think there's less patience than there was because there's plenty of money to finance this ricocheting from coach to coach to coach.
So where do you place the over-under line of number of vacancies we're going to have about, what would you say, 5 weeks from now, Mike?
Well, I was running through it yesterday. Belichick, it's almost a given that he's not going to be back. That would be the biggest shocker at this point, is if he just comes back and it's like nothing ever happened. Brandon Staley seems to be in grave danger. Is there another kind? Ron Rivera seems to be coaching out the string in Washington before major changes are made by new ownership there. And then there are others that kind of fall into the who knows what's going to happen. Let's see how it plays out. How they do down the stretch could be a factor. Matt Eberflus in Chicago, last night's win surely helps. Dennis Allen in New Orleans, there's some unrest among the fans as to what's going to happen going forward. But, you know, we see every year it's somewhere between 4 and 8. And a lot of it just depends upon how the season ends. And that's why the 2 extra playoff spots have been very helpful, because for a lot of coaches, the mandate is get to the playoffs or else. Well, okay, we've got 14 spots now instead of 12. That's 2 coaches every year, potentially, who otherwise would have been out, who get saved.
What about Buffalo? You didn't mention Buffalo. Oh. You didn't mention even the Jets. You know, I think it would be unfair, quite frankly, if Saleh eats it because, you know, the Achilles popped. And even if he was part of the process that says, don't bring in another quarterback in here, we got the room right. The offensive line, he didn't go and knock Vera Tuck out for the year. Again, that's just me caping for him right now. But what do you think about others? Because right now, the 2 vacancies you have now, you mentioned 2 others that we'll see down the stretch, guys, and 3 that you think's out. That's 7 right there, Mike.
Well, and I inadvertently omitted Sean McDermott because I believe if the Bills don't make the playoffs, there will be major changes in Buffalo, either GM or head coach or both, to get somebody who has an offensive background to get the most out of Josh Allen and the talent around him. But they have a limited window of years that Josh Allen is going to be the quarterback of the Bills. They've got to get what they can while they can out of Josh Allen. As to Saleh, I'm with you. They sold their souls for Aaron Rodgers, and the devil collected before they could even get a single drive out of it. This is all about next year. And I think the sooner that Woody Johnson comes out and says it, and I think before that, Aaron Rodgers needs to come out and say, I'm definitely coming back next year. And I think, you know, Rodgers maybe dangles that to get what he wants. Like, hey, I want to come back and play a few games this year, even though it makes no sense. I just want to do it. Oh, and by the way, I haven't announced with 100% certainty that I'm coming back next year. I think Rodgers needs to use his weekly platform, which is going to happen at some point this afternoon, and say at some point, I am definitely coming back next year. And then after he does it, that's when Woody Johnson needs to say, we're bringing everybody back. We're going to do next year what we were going to do this year if Aaron Rodgers had been healthy. So I think everybody should get a pass, because how do you get the most out of Aaron Rodgers if you bring in a new head coach. And there's no buddy of Aaron Rodgers out there that is just lurking to come be the head coach of the Jets. He loves the fact that Saleh is a defensive head coach and that the defense is good and he can work with his buddy Nathaniel Hackett to take care of the offense. So I don't think you change anything in New York as long as Rodgers is coming back.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.